the wizard who should be afraid of me.
I have an off and on relationship with musicals, especially when they're adapted into film. It really depends on how the songs start and end, if the current scene warrants it, or adds more to something when it's adapted from another source. Most of it works, like the traditional classic Disney formula, while others would just have it be a musical for no legit reason and make me wish it shouldn't have been made. I had an acting class during one high school semester, and usually at the beginning of these classes, we would learn about different musical theater and stage productions, ranging from the Broadway version of The Lion King, Jekyll and Hyde, Avenue Q, West Side Story, Little Shop of Horrors, and of course, Wicked, the subject of today's video. I found myself invested in each premise of these productions, even though I haven't personally seen any of them. But I did look into them more over the years. I know this is gonna sound blasphemous to the fans, but out of the musicals I learned about, Wicked wasn't hitting all the right notes with me. Not that all of it was terrible, I did get invested in it, it's just that even back then, I knew the concept sounded silly to me. Seeing events in the world of Oz through the perspective of the one who would become the Wicked Witch of the West, her rivalry into friendship with who would become the Good Witch? Now, I've not read the book that it was adapted from. I'm not entirely sure if this was the catalyst of the modern Hollywood trope where the well-known classic villain is rewritten to be misunderstood and/or sympathetic, while the good guys are rewritten to be losers, creeps, and/or oppressors with a dose of modern cynicism and narcissism. But we sure as hell got a lot of it through the years, and a good number of them sucked, especially through the majority of big IPs out there. But I do understand why Wicked is so beloved by most people. The production design, the choreography, and the songs written by Stephen Schwartz, who co-wrote the songs for Pocahontas, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and The Prince of Egypt. These songs work, even when you remove the context. It's also what made Idina Menzel recognizable from her singing voice before Disney's Frozen. And even before that, she was in the fairy tale satire Enchanted. And I'll turn your face into Swiss cheese if any one of you starts singing Let It Go. Wicked did go on to win a few Tony Awards in 2004, including Best Musical.
And the 2004 Tony Award for Best Musical goes to Avenue Q.
Well, damn. That's pretty funny. This one musical that parodies Sesame Street with the premise of facing early adulthood with songs like If You Were Gay, Everyone's a Little Bit Racist, and The Internet is for Porn resonated more with audiences. That's what we call schadenfreude, ladies and gents. Okay, that's enough clowning for now. This is just my personal perspective on musicals in general. I don't mind Wicked all too much for its style and songs, sometimes. I just found the narrative to be lacking compared to other musicals, and even Oz adaptations in general. But I do know there are far worse. Now onto the film version. Being that this is only part 1 of 2, and the runtime being the exact length of the actual stage show, including an intermission, has this version of Wicked really changed my perception on it? Well, no. I think it's a fine movie. It's basically the same way I feel about its stage version. It's just fine. A film version was in the works ever since the book got published, and the film rights were held onto by Universal, so adapting to film would be quite the task. Okay, so a brief rundown of the story so far for those who don't know. Wicked acts as a prequel to The Wizard of Oz. Glinda the Good Witch tells the story of how Elphaba Throp was born, how she grew up being bullied by her peers because of her green skin, and how the two of them met in their adult years at Shiz University. And that just sounds humorously foul the more I say and hear it, but yes, that's what it's called. Madame Morrible offers to tutor Elphaba after witnessing an unintended use of her magic, and this gives Elphaba the thought that it'll bring her closer to the wizard, who she idolizes. However, she is forced to share a room with Glinda, but honestly, what difference does it make? The two get under each other's skin at first, but over time, they begin to forge a close friendship. Oh, and there's a love triangle between them and a handsome prince named Fiero who attends the school, and there's a terrible scheme to enslave Oz's animal inhabitants so they can't speak again. Elphaba learns of this through Dr. Dillamond, and this pushes her to do what she can to help them. And that's basically all I'm gonna say about it so far. But if you know the story by heart from seeing the musical, or just looked further into it like I have, you definitely get the idea of how part 1 of this adaptation ends, and the pacing to get to that point feels bloated at times. As for the look of the film, director John M. Chu has gone out of his way to make sure a lot of what you're seeing are practical sets and not something lazily tacked on by blue screens all the time. Of course, there's still digital aid from computer artists for other shots, and obviously the animal characters, but a good lot of the sets are there. The movie even nails the retro aesthetic down to the opening logo and the title card. Even though it does look beautiful, there are several shots where the lighting is too bright. I get it, it was shot on location with the physical sets built, and the light of the sun is going to get in there. I don't mind seeing the bright and colorful world it's conveying, but I think it helps to give some subtle shading. Ariana Grande is the standout performance as the bubbly, overconfident Glinda, and Cynthia Erivo is good pulling off Elphaba's concern and vulnerability. Both actresses have wonderful chemistry together, they have great singing voices, and it was a nice touch to have the original actresses who played Elphaba and Glinda in the stage musical to do a cameo, appearing alongside them, bridging the old with the new. Michelle Yeoh is Michelle Yeoh, and Jeff Goldblum is Jeff Goldblum. I know, they're Madame Morrible and the Wizard of Oz, but it did feel like they were just playing as themselves, and it was best that they weren't given much to do for singing. Really, that is all I can say for this movie overall. Like I said, it's fine. Will I see part 2? It depends. Splitting a film into 2 parts, or even making a whole franchise, isn't always an easy task. It really depends on how you plan it out, how passionate you are in adapting the source material, how creative and entertaining you make it, and leave people wanting more to get to the end. Would you believe to this day I have not seen Mockingjay Part 2 because of how utterly bored and uninterested Part 1 left me? As for this film, I did get invested enough to see how the rest of the story will play out on screen, but I am setting the bar a little low for it since Part 1 was obviously just adapting Act 1 of the stage show, and Part 2 is just going to adapt Act 2, which is known for being much slower paced. Regardless, it did give me what I expected. Not bad, not great, but I was entertained. And until Part 2 comes out, I shall return to Eorzea. I'll catch you later.